Etsy stock, ticker symbol ETSI. Etsy stock is down 50% year to date, while the S&P 500 is down only 16% year to date. But Etsy just released the earnings and the stock went up 8% as of recording this video. So what happened with the earnings, and does this mean that Etsy stock is a buy right now? In this video I'm going to check the earnings and show real quickly what Etsy does. A view at the historical returns, the fundamental analysis, and in the last part I'm giving you my price target to see if they are a buy or not. And I think you definitely want to see that part. I'm very excited to see what you guys think about this stock, so please let me know your thoughts in the comments. My name is Thomas and this is Thomas Invest. I'm an investor looking for great stocks at great prices. So what does Etsy do? Etsy operates a top 10 e-commerce marketplace operator in the US and the UK, with sizable operations in Germany, France, Australia and Canada. The firm dominates an interesting niche, connecting buyers and sellers through its online market to exchange vintage and craft goods. Etsy generates revenue from listing fees, commissions on sold items, advertising services, payment processing and shipping labels. And now, let's dive into the earnings report. Right off the bat, this looks really good. Revenue is up 10.6% year over year and the adjusted EBITDA margin is up 28%. And Etsy beat the GAAP EPS big time and also beat the revenue. So that's also why the stock is up big time as of recording this video. A very important revenue stream are the ads, and in this sheet we see that Etsy has a 5-year ad revenue growth of 500% and a 5-year marketplace GMS growth of 253%. Both numbers are very impressive. But keep in mind, big growth doesn't always mean that you have to buy the stock, so let's continue diving in the results. A thing that I really like about Etsy is the growth in product development spending. It's growing quite nice and steady in amount of dollars, while percentages is slowing down a bit. And it basically comes down to the business model they use, which is focusing on getting more sellers to the platform, which attracts more buyers, which can increase the quality of the platform. I really like this part of the business. Another thing that I really like about Etsy is the fact that the new buyers is above the pre-pandemic periods. So it means they acquire more new buyers to the platform. And it's the same story with the buyer reactivation. But a thing to keep in mind is that the GMS declaration has slowed down in recent months, so definitely keep an eye on this number. And now that we know exactly what happened in the latest quarter and why the stock is up, it's time to check the historical returns to see what happened there. Since I think Etsy is operating in a niche and being the market leader with a big moat, I don't think there's a competitor which I can use in the historical stock price comparison. But I added the S&P 500 as a benchmark. And take a look at this. On the 5-year chart, Etsy had a total return of 550%, while the S&P 500 is at only 62%, excluding dividends. But on the 1-year chart, it's quite different. Etsy returned a minus 52%, and the S&P 500 is at minus 8%. On the 6-month chart, we see a minus 31% for Etsy and a minus 7% for the S&P 500, also quite a difference. But on the 1-month chart, we finally see some positive returns for Etsy again, with 18%, while the S&P 500 is at 3%. So it seems that Etsy goes up and down a lot, which is very typical for a growth stock. So does this mean that Etsy is a buy? Let's find out by checking the fundamentals of this company. But first, if you made it this far into the video, I want to thank you a lot for watching this video. I also want to mention that I'm almost at 1000 subscribers, so please help me achieving this huge milestone by giving me a subscribe. In return, you receive similar analysis to this one every week. Let's continue by diving into the fundamentals. Etsy is a 13 billion market cap company with a PE ratio of 30, which seems a bit high and means that you pay a premium for the stock. But maybe in this case it's worth it. In the end of this video I will give you my 3 price targets based on a low, mid and high assumption. So definitely watch until the end of this video to see if Etsy stock is a buy. Next thing that I want to discuss is revenue. Etsy has a 12 trailing month revenue of 2.36 billion. In this graph we see that revenue is growing at a nice and steady pace. I really like this pattern, but keep in mind that the big growth in 2020 is slowing down a bit. Right now, which we see in this graph. Net income is at 435 million, which gives us a profit margin of 18.5%, which is very nice, since it's above the 10% minimum. But to be honest, I would like to see an increasing profit margin, which isn't the case right now. The current profit margin is in line with the 5-year average, so keep that in mind. Return on assets is at 9.7% and almost at the 10% minimum, so it's almost there, and not a big problem for me. Return on equity is at 73%, which is very nice, and return on invested capital, the most important number here, is at 17%, which is really great, especially since it's above the 5-year average of 11%. So this tells me that Etsy really knows how to invest their money, and this comforts me a lot, of course. Next up is the balance sheet. Etsy has a total cash of 982 million, let's call it $1 billion. But total debt is at 239 billion, meaning they can't pay down at least 50% of their total debt right now. And normally I would say this is a problem, but I think in the case of Etsy it isn't a big problem. Companies use debt to grow the business, and we saw that return on invested capital is sitting at 70%, which is really high. And they almost can pay down 50%, so to me this is not a big problem right now, but definitely keep an eye on this number. And it's important that free cash flow is growing in the long run, since this is used to pay down debt of course, but also to buy back shares, do acquisitions, research and development and pay dividends, which Etsy doesn't do right now. So all the money can be invested right back into the company. In this graph we see that free cash flow went up big time in the past 2 years, which is related to the big growth during the lockdown periods. So definitely keep in mind that growth will slow down in the coming periods, and so will the revenue, and in the end free cash flow. I do like the growth in the long run, but keep an eye on this number, because growth will slow down in my opinion. Next up are the shares outstanding. And this is a bit of a tricky part. Etsy was massively overvalued, and an easy way to raise capital is issuing new shares of course, which they did. So I don't blame them for issuing new shares when the stock was overvalued, especially since they really know how to invest their money back into the business. And in the recent quarters they didn't issue a lot of new shares, which is something I really like. So definitely keep an eye on this number in the future, since this number will dilute you as an investor, because with every new share they issue, you own less of the company in ratio. Your piece of the pie becomes smaller. And now the last part of this video, the 3 price targets that I created using the Everything Money software, which is one of the best tools out there, so please check them out. I created a low, mid and high assumption based on what we discover about the company and about the stock. We have to fill in a few key numbers, starting off with revenue. As I said earlier in this video, things will start to slow down a bit, but Etsy is still growing in high amounts right now. So I'm aiming for a 10% on my low assumption, 12% on my mid assumption and 14% on a high assumption. For the profit margin I'm aiming for 16% on the low side, 18% on the mid side, which is around the current profit margin, and I'm aiming for 20% on the high side. Free cash flow margin I fill in 20%, which is lower than the current free cash flow margin, as things seem to slow down a little bit. 22 for the mid assumption, which seems around the current average, and 24 on the high assumption. PE ratio is a bit high right now at 30, which means you pay premium right now. And to be honest, I think Etsy may be worth the premium, but you don't want to overpay for the growth, so I'm aiming for 20, 21 and 22. It's the same story with price to free cash flow. I put in 12.5% annual return, since you can get an easy 10% annual return with owning an ETF in the long run. Right now Etsy is at $102 as of recording this part of the video. I hit analyze and we see some green numbers. We have a low price target of $63 to $79, a mid price target of $86 to $105 and a high price target of $115 to $138. To be honest, I think Etsy will be in a range of a mid and high price target. And I'm aiming for a $86 to $115 price range, because it seems this is the most justified range. So that means there's some upward potential in stock price. My final conclusion is that I really like Etsy as a company, and I started to like Etsy more and more as a stock. And I think there's a lot of potential with Etsy in the coming years. So I will definitely add them to my buy list and wait for a small drop in stock price. I want a higher margin of safety, so I'm waiting before I'm going to buy Etsy stock. And remember to always do your own research and never fully trust on what I or other YouTubers say about a stock. I'm not a financial advisor and this content is just for entertaining purposes only. I hope you liked this video and I did bring some insights of the company to you. I would really appreciate a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to get notified when I'm posting a new video. Thanks for watching and I will see you in my next video.